For thousands of years, the story of meat has been a story of the land. It was about soil, sun, seasons, and the unpredictable forces of nature. That story is about to be deliberately erased. What is coming to replace it is not a natural evolution. It is a calculated multi-billion-dollar hostile takeover of the global food supply. The architects of this revolution are not farmers. They are venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, data scientists in Boston, and the same investment banks on Wall Street that dictate the flow of the global economy. They look at the $900 billion livestock industry, and they don't see food. They see an inefficient analog system waiting to be digitized, patented, and controlled. For them, a cow is a messy, unpredictable biological asset that is vulnerable to disease and weather, but a cell that can be grown, multiplied, and harvested in a controlled, sterile bioreactor? That's intellectual property. That's a perfectly predictable, infinitely scalable manufacturing process. That's a recurring revenue stream that can be licensed and sold like software. The reports from firms like McKinsey and Boston Consulting Group aren't just predictions. They are investment prospectuses. They lay out a clear roadmap to what they call price parity. We call it the kill switch. The year 2036 is the target date, the moment their product, clean, consistent, lab-grown meat, becomes just as cheap or cheaper than the steak from a farm. At that exact moment, the fate of millions of ranchers, farmers, and entire rural economies that have existed for centuries is sealed. They won't just be outcompeted, they will be rendered obsolete by design. This is the story of how the most fundamental part of our civilization is being systematically turned into a tech product. This isn't just about a new kind of burger. It's about who will have ultimate control over the protein that powers our planet. In this investigation, we will follow the money, expose the players, and decode the plan to replace every farm with a factory, revealing the unsettling future it holds for all of us. So how does a hostile takeover of a trillion-dollar industry actually happen? It's not a single event. It's a perfect storm, an engineered convergence of three irresistible forces: the money, the science, and the law. First, let's talk about the money. We are not talking about a few hopeful startups. According to the Good Food Institute, we are talking about a war chest of over $3 billion, and that's just the publicly disclosed funding. This is smart money, the kind of capital that doesn't just follow trends, it creates them. It's coming from the titans of tech, the billionaires who built the digital world and are now seeking to build the biological one. And in a stunning turn of events, it's also coming from the inside. Giants of the traditional meat industry, like Tyson Foods and JBS, the very empires set to be demolished, are hedging their bets, pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into the companies designing their replacements. They see the writing on the wall and are buying a stake in their own executioner. This capital has funded a new breed of corporation, companies like Upside Foods in California, Mosa Meat in the Netherlands, and Believer Meats in Israel. These aren't just food companies, they're biotech platforms, built to do for protein what Microsoft did for software: make it uniform, scalable, and infinitely profitable. The money is the fuel, but the weapon is the science. The core challenge was never could we grow meat in a lab. Mosa Meat proved the concept years ago with a single burger that cost over $300,000. The real question was, could you do it cheap enough to kill a cow? The answer is now a definitive yes. As a landmark McKinsey report outlines, the cost of production for cultivated meat has plummeted by an astonishing 99%. The prohibitively expensive growth media, the nutrient bath that feeds the cells, is being replaced by cheaper plant-based alternatives. The complex scaffolding that gives the meat its texture is being perfected. This isn't just gradual progress. This is a brutal, relentless march towards efficiency, driven by the same Silicon Valley mindset that makes your iPhone obsolete every 2 years. And they've armed themselves with a powerful public narrative. Citing reports from firms like Boston Consulting Group, they can claim their product will slash greenhouse gas emissions by over 90% and virtually eliminate the need for agricultural land. They are positioning themselves not as corporate raiders, but as saviors of the planet. But money and science are not enough. To truly take over, you need permission. You need the third and final force, the law. For years, the single greatest barrier was the United States Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. A massive lobbying war was waged in Washington, D.C., with the traditional cattlemen's associations fighting to label this new product as anything but meat. They fought to keep it buried in regulatory purgatory. They lost. In 2023, the FDA gave its official stamp of approval. It declared cultivated meat safe for human consumption. This wasn't just a bureaucratic decision. It was the final domino. It was a declaration that the system is ready to embrace this new technology. The government greenlit the revolution. So now, the perfect storm is complete. A tidal wave of capital, a cost-effective scientific weapon, and the full blessing of the regulatory state. The foundation for the 2036 tipping point isn't just being laid. It has been built, fortified, and is now ready to unleash a tsunami of change upon an unsuspecting world. So, what does the world actually look like after the kill switch has been flipped? What happens when the prophecy is fulfilled? Picture the fallout. It doesn't happen all at once, but in a series of cascading collapses that permanently scar the economic, political, and cultural landscape. The first domino is economic, and it falls with a brutal, earth-shattering thud. The year is 2036. You walk into a supermarket, and there it is, 2 packages of ground beef, side by side. One is from a cow, its label showing a picture of a red barn and a green pasture. The other, from a company like Upside Foods, has a sleek, minimalist label, perhaps with a carbon footprint score that's 90% lower. They look identical. They taste identical. But the one from the lab is 20% cheaper. For the average consumer, the choice is simple. And that simple choice, multiplied by billions of people, unleashes an economic extinction event. For the corporate behemoths like Tyson Foods and JBS, this is their Kodak moment. For decades, their power was their infrastructure, a sprawling, continent-spanning network of farms, feedlots, slaughterhouses, and refrigerated trucks. Overnight, that network becomes a liability, a multi-billion-dollar anchor dragging them to the bottom. Their stock prices hemorrhage value as Wall Street realizes that a tech company with a handful of gleaming, efficient bioreactors can now outproduce an entire state's worth of cattle ranches. They are faced with a horrific choice: cannibalize their own legacy and pivot to becoming a protein brand that licenses technology from the very startups they once dismissed, or go bankrupt. Many choose bankruptcy. But the true devastation isn't felt in the boardrooms. It's felt in the heartland. It's the 5th-generation rancher in Montana who receives a letter from the meatpacker terminating his contract. It's the small town in Iowa whose entire economy was built around a processing plant that now sits silent and rusting. This isn't just a loss of jobs. It's an erasure of identity, turning vibrant rural communities into economic ghost towns haunted by the memory of a way of life that vanished in less than a decade. And as the American heartland hollows out, a new global power map is being redrawn. This is the second collapse, the geopolitical reset. As the Center for Strategic and International Studies has warned, this technology fundamentally breaks the link between geography and food production. For all of human history, the world's agricultural superpowers were nations blessed with vast, fertile lands: the United States, Brazil, Argentina, Australia. Their power was rooted in the soil. That era is over. In the new world, power belongs to whoever controls the technology and has the energy to run the bioreactors. Nations once considered resource poor but technologically advanced, Israel, Singapore, South Korea, the Netherlands, suddenly achieved total protein independence. They are immune to drought, disease, and supply chain disruptions. This technology becomes a national security imperative, a strategic asset more valuable than an aircraft carrier. Food is weaponized in a way we've never seen before. A country can airdrop a self-contained, container-sized bioreactor to feed an army or an allied population, projecting power and influence without a single farm. The old levers of power, trade embargoes on agricultural goods, become meaningless. A new Cold War ignites, a protein race to develop the most efficient cell lines and growth media, creating a new global hierarchy of the biotech haves and the agricultural have-nots. Finally, this global conflict trickles all the way down to the most intimate of places, the dinner table. This is the third and final collapse, the cultural civil war. Society fractures along a new, deeply personal fault line. On one side, you have the urban, tech-savvy adopters who see cultivated meat as the clean, moral, and scientifically superior choice. They call it clean meat. To them, eating a farm-raised animal is a barbaric and wasteful relic of the past. On the other side, you have the traditionalists who view this new product with deep suspicion. They call it synthetic sludge or pharma food. For them, eating real meat becomes a powerful political and cultural statement, an act of rebellion against an artificial world, a way to hold on to something authentic. Food is no longer about sustenance, it's about which tribe you belong to. Restaurants are segregated by ideology. Sleek, sterile, cellular cafes in the cities, and secret, expensive heritage farm steakhouses in the exurbs, catering to those who crave the forbidden taste of authenticity. The choice of what you eat for dinner becomes the ultimate purity test, igniting a bitter ideological war over the very soul of food. It's tempting, isn't it? To look at this future and see a utopia. A world without the immense, systematized cruelty of industrial slaughterhouses. A world where, as the data from Boston Consulting Group promised, our demand for meat no longer requires leveling forests or draining rivers. A world free from the threat of swine flu or avian flu jumping from overcrowded farms into the human population. On paper, it is a perfect solution. We solved the problem. We eliminated the suffering. We slashed the carbon footprint. We made our food supply clean, safe, and ruthlessly efficient. We used our godlike technological power to fix one of our oldest and dirtiest industries. But in our rush to solve the problem of the animal, we may have created a much deeper, more insidious problem for ourselves. Because this clean, sterile future doesn't solve us. It doesn't fix our appetite for endless consumption. It just sanitizes it. It creates a new, sharply defined world of winners and losers. The winners are the new food tech oligarchs who hold the patents to the cell lines that feed the world. The losers are the millions of people whose connection to the land, whose culture and identity have been deemed obsolete and discarded like a relic. We are trading one set of very visible, very tangible problems for a new set of invisible, philosophical ones. And it forces us to confront a series of questions we are profoundly unprepared to answer. What is real food? Is it merely a collection of proteins, fats, and molecules arranged in the correct structure? Or does its authenticity come from its story, its connection to the sun, the soil, a life that was lived? What does it mean to be human in a world where even life itself is no longer born, but manufactured? We've already outsourced our memory to the internet and our creativity to algorithms. When we outsource the very substance that builds our bodies to a factory, what essential part of our humanity do we lose in the transaction? This is the stark trade-off that is coming for us. This is the choice that will be forced upon you. So I will not offer you a solution. I will only leave you with the warning and the one final question that you will have to answer for yourself. In 2036, you will stand in that grocery aisle. On your left is the farm-raised steak, the product of a flawed, messy, and increasingly boutique system. On your right, for the exact same price, is the cultivated steak, perfect, clean, and carrying none of the ethical or environmental baggage. Your decision in that moment will be more than just a choice about dinner. It will be a vote, a declaration of the values you want to build the future upon. So, which world do you choose to build? This is a prophecy from AI. Be prepared.